on the top bar. Who has heard of vibe coding? Cool. So two people. Yeah, so vibe coding is this relatively new thing. It was actually the term was coined the phrase was coined this year. So it's a really new thing. So let's talk about what it is. So it's really using natural language. And in our case, I only speak English. I speak un poquito español. That means a little Spanish. But that's about, I have very limited Spanish. So really the only way I could interact with vibe coding is through English. But you could vibe code in any language. Probably English might be one of the most effective languages for vibe coding, although any would probably work. But so much of the training data on the public internet that was scraped, some legally, some not. There's lots of lawsuits out there. All this data was scraped and all this knowledge was built up, and most of it is in English. So you could do it in any spoken language, but we'll use English here today. So for vibe coding, breaking it down, because the name is sort of silly, in my opinion. The name is almost sad. And we'll get to the name a little more, how it got its name. But basically, what you're doing is you're instructing a chatbot to create software based on certain specifications. So you're going to tell the chatbot in English language, hey, build me a website that can do this. I want to have this feature. I want to have that feature. And you just basically type it in. Now, you don't type it into just any chatbot. You have to type it into a vibe coding tool. And we're going to go through a tool here in a minute. We're going to use a tool called Replit. So if you went into ChatGPT and you were sort of putting in instructions to write code, it will write code for you. Technically, it's probably vibe coding, but I think most of the vibe coding are being done in tools like Bolt or Replit or Lovable or tools like that are sort of these environments, as we'll see in a second, that are made to like stand up full applications. And it's much more streamlined and much more efficient to work in these tools versus something like ChatGPT if you want to build a full app. So you can get as detailed as you want or not with building an app. You can sort of put in whatever details you want. You can leave out whatever details you want. Obviously, like most things in life, the more specific you give it instructions, the more you tell it what you want, the more you're super specific about things, and you document what you want and maybe what you don't want, you're going to get a much probably better version of a tool. It'll probably be much more usable, and it'll certainly be much more in alignment with exactly what you're asking for. So I had mentioned in February of this year, 2025, is when this phrase was coined by Andre Karpathy. And Andre is one of the founders of OpenAI. So OpenAI are the people that made ChatGPT. They're definitely some of the brightest and smartest folks on planet Earth. And this gentleman, Andre, basically said, if you code with a vibe coding tool, you just sort of give in to the vibes, man. You just let it flow. You just feel the vibes. That's sort of that's what the name's all about. I think the name makes me kind of almost, vomit in my mouth. I think that's sort of so it feels so unprofessional to me that I have a hard time with the name. But that's really what it is about, where you're sort of just generating code via these prompts, and it's an iterative process, as we'll see here tonight, and that's vibe coding. Any comments or questions or anything like that? That's sort of what it is in a nutshell. We're going to talk about a little bit more before we jump into the demo. The demo is going to be the best part, but so far so good. Okay. So, in my opinion, on planet Earth, there's sort of three ways to write code, and there's probably more, but I'm going to say there's sort of three ways. Number one is the good old-fashioned way. Just write the damn code, right? Write it manually. Chuck on a keyboard, right? A human pumping out the code. That's sort of the first way. And up until about 2 years ago, that really has been the primary way to write code. And I just noticed my editor, I don't have an editor. Oh, shoot. Did that stop the sharing? It did. I'll put that back. I had to quickly fix a typo. The second one is vibe coding. So that's what we're talking about. That's another way that you can write code. And so that's where you can have zero programming capabilities. You can know nothing about anything technical and you can vibe code, by the way. That's a really important point. You don't have to talk about anything technical. You just talk about what you want. There are some technical questions you might get, but if you don't know the answer, you could sort of just say, I don't even know what that means. Do whatever you think would be best. And so you don't need to be technical. And number 3 is sort of like AI assisted tools. So there's a huge movement right now with professional developers. And they say that a developer can probably have about a 20 to 30% productivity gain, meaning that they can do like what used to take 8 hours, they can now do in about, say, 6 hours. Is the productivity gain, is that the right math? Something like that is roughly like the productivity gain that we're seeing with these AI assisted tools. And there's like Cursor, GitHub, Copilot are these tools. So these productivity tools that I'm talking about, these AI assisted tools, they're using AI. Much the same way vibe coding is doing it, but they work differently. They're sort of this bucket number 3. It's integrated into these tools that developers are already using, and you're in this world of source code, programming code, and you can sort of type in questions to these tools in bucket number 3, and it can like kick back code or inject code into what you're looking at in your current file or window or source code file. So these are 3 different ways you could do it. Now, under the manual one, number 1, there's also some like mechanical mechanisms that have existed for 10 years or so. So without getting super technical, there are some situations where like you can kind of have, when you're writing manual code, you can have code created for you in a non-AI way, but it's super limited. So I didn't even really call it out. So the main reason I wanted to show this slide of 3 ways to code is number 3 is getting a lot of attention on planet Earth. And number 3 is how professional developers are taking advantage of AI. I would argue that vibe coding is interesting. It has its place, but it is not really a tool that most professional developers are using. And I think it has a somewhat limited capability overall. It's a little bit limited for what a professional developer would want. Because it's sort of an abstract way of doing things, right? It's easier for a developer at times to just write the exact code they want than to like iterate with an AI to get what they want. So I wanted to show these 3. We're, of course, today going to be focused on number 2. But I want to stress one thing one more time. Up until October of 22, which is, let's call it 2.5 years ago, virtually all code on planet Earth and in the history of mankind was written manually. It's not until the last 2.5 years of human existence that we've had generative AI, large language models, right? The stuff behind ChatGPT, Google Gemini, I'm drawing a blank. The Claude, the people behind Claude, drawing a blank. These tools all sort of came together based on some inventions that recently happened. And so bucket number 2 and 3 have only been around for 2.5 years. Bucket number 2 has really only been around for less than a year. So this is incredibly late breaking stuff. And so we're going to go through a demo of vibe coding here today, but a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this is going to be radically different. The way AI is going to be able to write code is going to be like exponentially greater than where we are today. And then one last note before I leave this slide, because I think the context is important. For bucket number 3, this AI assisted tools, one of the tools, Copilot, GitHub Copilot is actually a tool from Microsoft. And I told you, it helps a developer sort of write relatively small pieces of code. Using the tools in bucket number 3, Microsoft now says that 30% of the code that they own, which are their assets, right? You know, Microsoft has an asset of all this software that runs in the cloud and all this. 30% has been written by AI. That's bucket number 3. They have harnessed these tools to such an extent that 1/3 of their software has been written by, you know, by computers, and 2/3 only by human. 2.5 years ago, 100% had been written by humans. Right. So it's just interesting to keep in context, like, you know, what's happening here and how fast things are moving. So far, so good. Okay. Hey, look at this. This is what I just said. Um, you know, I'll make one last point on this. This is basically what I just talked about. I think sometimes I talk to people and they say, Matt, I mean, there was XML, there was this stuff called RPA, there was Bitcoin. You know, there's all these technologies that come out, and you know, and the tech industry and the media, the tech media, they hype everything up, right? Like it's gonna change the world, like, you know, and Bitcoin is actually so interesting, but I think it has a ways to go still. But in some ways, a lot of these technologies sometimes don't really end up meeting the hyped expectations that are set out there. The reason I wanted to make it clear that up until 2.5 years ago, that all code was written by humans, and that now a company like Microsoft already in 2.5 years has 1/3 written by machines, is that this is going to be a trend. The trend, it's not a question of whether or not AI will continue to write more and more code. You know, is that going to happen? Yes, absolutely yes. The only answer is yes. So therefore, the only relevant question left, in my opinion, like there's no need to talk about, is this going to happen? How quickly will it happen? Right. And you know, how quickly will it maybe, you know, take over what a human might do? And I don't know the answer to that, but a lot of experts are saying within 2 years, AI will be writing, you know, 80 to 90% of the software. And a developer's role doesn't go away, it just changes. You know, now a developer is going to be more like this orchestrator, this you know, that orchestrates these software agents, you know, basically these pieces of AI software that you can sort of send them off to do things like, hey, I want you to go add this feature, you know, that allows me to like reset a password on my website. You know, this agent, I want you to go out and update the user interface so it looks prettier. You know, this agent, I want you to go update the website so it's accessible from screen readers, right? You can just set these agents out. And in the future, these agents might run for, I mean, possibly days, and they'd come back with like millions and millions of lines of code that they've written or modified. Like that's the sort of future vision that where most people are thinking that's where we're headed. Cool. And uh, Steve, I just saw your post about you've created some of the same things in ChatGPT and Claude. That's awesome. Probably the two biggest vibe coding tools right now, really the two leaders I think are Replit, which is what we're gonna see it in detail here in a second, and Claude Code by Anthropic. I couldn't remember the company. So Anthropic's another big company that makes Claude. And my daughter's name is Claude, so and it's a very good model. So and not just because it's my daughter's name. So now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are going to go in and do our demo on Replit.com, and we will definitely build code. We will probably debug to some extent, and we will deploy this to the internet. The reason that Replit and Claude Code, actually, not Claude. Claude's a large language model, but Claude Code is a certain environment where you can code. Replit and Claude Code can both deploy to the internet without writing any code or knowing anything about how to do it. Most of the other, like if you get code, like Steve, you were saying you get code from ChatGPT, there's times where that's amazing. I mean, I do it all the time, so there's nothing wrong with it. It's just vibe coding is where you don't have to have any technical skills, and you can go from nothing to having something literally accessible on the internet in a matter of time. And that's what our plan is going to be in the next 44 minutes or less, we're going to try and get something on the internet. And so other Vibe tools allow you to write code, but it's the tools Claude Code and Replit that allow you to get stuff onto the internet. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to switch windows, and I am going to share my web browser. And there's nothing fancy going on here. This is just make that as big as I can. This is just a web browser. I happen to be using Google Chrome. You could probably use any browser of your choice. And I went to replit.com, and here I am. Now, I have an account, so if you go to replit.com, and it might look a little different, they might be trying to get you to sign up. I have an account where I pay a certain amount. When I was experimenting with Replit a few months back, I kept running into issues where it basically was telling me like, hey, Matt, I was working on something, and we're going to start that here in a second. And it basically came back and said, you know what, Matt, the site's so busy. There's so much demand. You're not a paying customer. You can't do this right now. Come back later. And for me, I was like, well, I'm trying to do some investigating like between meetings and in the evening, and Replit's popular worldwide. So there's really no time Replit isn't busy. And so, you could call it a scam, or you could call it just a super successful platform that gives priority, to their paying users. So I shelled out, it's like probably $250. So I paid for a year, $250, something like that, so that I could experiment with it and try it out. Now, actually, before we do our demo, and I promise you're like, gosh, is this guy ever going to get to the demo? So I want to show two things. Can you still see something that says habit tracker? Okay, thanks, Brian. So this is a website that I built using Replit. Now you'd say, well, what the heck is this? Well, I don't know. One day I sat down, I'm like, I want to build something. And I'm like, let's build something that tracks my habits. Now, there's lots of apps out there that do this. There's probably free ones. I'm not suggesting this is like a great app idea. I just was trying to think of an idea. So I went in and said that I wanted to actually, I'm going back in history. So this is literally what I said. Can you guys see my screen here? And you'll see how to do this in a minute. But I wrote, I want to make a mobile-friendly web app for my iPhone that will track my habits that I've accomplished for the day. And I want to have the ability to look at today or any given date and be able to view or modify the habits that I've accomplished. There should be an editable portion of the application that allows me to configure the habits that should be available to be checked off on a day-to-day basis. And I should be able to view different days and see the streak that I have going for various habits. I want this to be usable on my iPhones, and so I can access it from the internet. Now, I wrote this just like, this is like, there's probably typos. From an English language perspective, it's ugly. But this is what I just cranked out one day. This is the first app that I created. And so, and this is, this is the app that I created. So you can see down at the bottom, and I can run this on an iPhone, but I can see today, and I can say, oh, like these are the things I want to do. Oh, I exercise, so I can check it with my mouse. Oh, I took my medicine and I ate salad. You hope to God Matt flossed his teeth too. Let's just assume I did. And I brushed my teeth, and let's say I did a few push-ups. So you can do all this, and then you can navigate. So I could go to, like up here, you can see today's Wednesday, June 11th. I can navigate a day over, to the 12th. I can come back to the 11th, and these are saved. This is saving to a database on the internet. And so I don't actually use this on a day-to-day basis, but, and I can go to this calendar view here. You can see, you can go through different days as well. All of this functionality, you're like, Matt, how much code did you write? How many lines of code do you think I wrote for this? Thank you, Brian. Brian's going to get a gold star. We got to figure out how to give him a gold star. Brian's the only one I can see. So he's, So he gets the gold star. So this habit tracker is something that I created in Replit. I also have one other app that I created that I track sort of my big to-dos for the week, but we don't need to see it. I call it weekly priorities. But now's the time to create an app. So I come into the application and look at this. I'm going to sort of zoom in here. Describe an app or site you want to create. Like, this is it. This is where we start typing. So why don't we take a few minutes here to see if anyone has any idea on what we want to build. We get to make up an app. So like one idea that just came to my mind that I'll throw out for consideration. It's something that Steve, you had an idea years ago to kind of track aspects of the city that might not be like ADA compliant, or they might not be usable even if they are ADA compliant. Would we want to try and whip up something that tracks stuff like that and allow the community to like put in issues, or does anyone have an app they need in their personal life that's family friendly that we could use? Because we obviously need to have an app, right? We got to describe something. Any thoughts?
Steve raised his hand, so go ahead, cool. Steve.
Yeah, so Steve, I'm assuming you're going to be typing this out. So actually, I'm assuming, yeah, we're going to wait. That app idea, I don't want to go into detail about it if it's something sort of proprietary or something you don't want to share with the world. That I guess I'd like to know that, Steve. And then if that idea is okay, if we have none others, that could be something we could try out. So, Steve, we'll wait for your reply, sir. By the way, I'm oscillating between being like really hot and really cold here in my basement office. So pocket alternative, I don't know what that means. And then you wrote pocket. Does anyone know? I'm not sure what that means, Steve, in the chat. Sorry to put you on the hot seat, Steve. I got a hot seat.
My laptop was on like really overheating earlier today.
Sometimes if your laptop is overheating and it seems like there's no reason, oh, Steve, sometimes that could be a virus. So, oh my goodness, this is such a great idea. I love this. Link saver. So I'm assuming that's like, hey, I ran into this interesting URL. Maybe I use different browsers on different devices. Everything doesn't sync. I'm extrapolating here, Steve, like just like thinking what this means to me. Sounds awesome. Like a website where you can come in and like probably paste a URL or type in a URL and then maybe put in a description. Maybe have it track the date that you put it in, because that might be a way you want to search by date or by URL or by a text description. Okay, so Steve says, yep, exactly. I think this is actually, this is, so I use a Replit site every day. I should have emphasized this. I've got a life priority app that shows the days of the week, and it shows sort of the big rocks, you know, that theme, big rocks. It's sort of like what I need to get done this week, some follow-ups. It's got these different boxes and I can type in, it all saves to the database. I can use it on my phone. I can use it on my iPad. I can use it on my computer. It saves to the internet. It's a web app. I use it every day. It's literally a tool that's an important part of how I manage my life, personally and professionally. I've got a calendar. It's not replacing my calendar. My calendar has 10,000 things on it. My email has 100,000 things in it, right? My to-do list has, 200 things in it. I need to go to a place where I can just put blinders on and be like, what do I need to do this week, right? And then daily, what do I need to do on Wednesday before I go to bed? And that's how I use this app. And everything's not in there, just the big rocks. It's like, I wouldn't want to go to bed if I didn't do my timesheet, or I didn't do my expenses, or I didn't, tell my daughter happy birthday Eve or something like that. I put them into this. So I use an app on a regular basis that was built by Replit. It's part of my production personal system. Steve, this idea for a link saver is something that I might end up taking something like this and adding it to my repertoire. This is a great idea. So, um, so so the requirements that I'm just making stuff up, and I don't want this to be just me, but we said, so I'm going to type stuff into the chat just so we can sort of capture it. So I was suggesting you you can dump a URL, right? A link, right? You can put a description, what is it? And it just, whatever you think it is. The date, time, you say submitted it. That's like a requirement. Let's gather requirements. Cool. So Steve, title. So I think title and description, I'm assuming, would be the same thing. A search capability, by URL, description, or date. Like I would think, like if I'm going to dump hundreds of links into a place, like, oh, I just found this cool site that sells gardening gear, 50% off on, wholesale closeouts. Like I might want to dump it in the link saver, and I might search on gardening later, and I want to be able to find it. Or I might know, like, what was that site? I think I dumped it in there on Monday. Let me search by date, right? These are just things that are coming to me. Ooh, ability to share links from apps. So Steve, I'm assuming that means, like, ideally it would like shoot an email off or something, right? Like you say, I want to share this, and you maybe that's cool. That's awesome. Anything else? So this is just a place where we're dumping links that we might want to come back to someday. Not entirely different than the way you might save links in like your in a browser's, bar, right? Anything else that we'd want to do with this? Oh, do we want to have a login? Do we want to have it secured so not anyone can get in? Okay, Steve's saying yes. So login required. Okay. Obviously, we want to save all data to like a database. We might not care which one, but we want it to be like saved. We call that persistent data. Like if you type in a link, we want it to be there tomorrow, the next day, and so on. That's the whole point. Any other aspects?
Maybe categorize it somehow.
Ooh,
Tag it.
Yeah, I thought high level topics.
okay. So, can the category, the tag, the topic, could that be, can that be one thing? Like, could that be, okay, so Steve, you're saying work personal. I mean, maybe like in my app, my habit app. Oh, I didn't even show you in the habit app, but you can edit the habits. Like you can, those list of habits that were on a daily basis that you check off, you can delete them, you can add new ones, right? So we probably want to be able to like manage the categories, right? And so Steve, if you want to do work personal and Brian wants to do ITKAN, SPR, personal, right? I mean, you could, so anyone could customize it the way they want. Do we want this to be multi-user or single user? That's actually a good question. Like, do you want it, like if Brian, you log in as Brian, do you want to have a different list than if Steve logs in? Probably, right? That would probably be your expectation. Both. Okay. So, ooh, could we, so I'm going to say submissions are saved to the given user. That's a little bit cryptic, but basically, so when you submit a URL, it'll be related to you. Like if you're logged in, Brian, it's going to be related to you. If I'm logged in, it's related to me. Thanks, Steve. But maybe would we want to have like almost like a global flag or something, or like a public flag, private public capability, so that Steve's saying, yeah. So is that what you meant by share, Steve? So that, Brian, you could be like, oh, this is so good, I'm going to make it public. And that means every other person can see it too. But like, but if you had some marketing link, you might be like, this isn't really relevant to anyone else. I'll just keep it private. Not so much that it's, okay, thanks, Steve. Not so much that it's uber private on planet Earth, but there's no need to like clutter other people's view with this. So we'll say public, private, setting to determine who can see. Okay. Unless anyone has any other burning requirements, I think we got a good list here. Just like in real software development, like we need to know what the heck we're building here. Now we know what the heck we're building. And so now it's about time for this thing to get real. But any other final requirements before we start? Pause for just a second here to see if there's any others. Steve's typing. No. Okay. Let's do it, ladies and gentlemen. So now I'm back to the browser. You can see my browser still, right? Okay, thanks. So I just sort of pasted in the first thing. So now we need to write this. Ideally someone else would do this, but I'll just do it for the group since it's the easiest way on this. So I want to create a web application. Now, why am I typing that? I don't know. I'm just telling it what I want, right? This is just how it occurs to me. I have a technical background, so I can put in technical jargon if I want. But if you didn't have a technical background, you wouldn't put in technical jargon. I'm going to try and not put in a lot of technical jargon because I think that's a more interesting test. So I want to create a web application that saves URL/links, comma, and associated user supplied description. Actually, and I'm not going to confuse it. Let's just call it, what the heck did you call it, Steve? Let's go with your lingo. Did you call it, Brian, can you look up, did he call it URL saver or link saver?
Link.
Okay. So we'll use that. Okay, so I want to create a web application that allows, I have a bunch of autocomplete that keep going off, allows a user I apologize. There's something weird about how my autocompletes are working. Allows a logged in user to save a web URL link with an associated user just with a associated description and capture the date and time she submitted it. Okay, that's sort of requirement number one. This is like about as exciting as watching paint dry, is it not? So now I'm going to go back to the chat and I'm going to look here real quick. So that's the URL. Okay, so search. Okay, one other thing. We want to also be able to specify a category for the submission. Every time I type A, it puts Alex. And also want to be able to edit the categories. However, I want you to give me work and personal categories to start. So, right. So I'm saying I want to be able to, I want to be able to add, edit, and delete categories, right? Let's be a little more specific. Does everything make sense so far? Clear as mud? Okay. So now let's talk about search. I want to to be able to search the previously saved links by, I'll say partial URL, partial description, or date submitted. Oh, or category. Am I missing anything for the, ooh, actually, let me put something in here. I want to have a flag on each submission that is set to either private or public. Private means only I can see it. Public means any user on system can see it. I want to be able to search previously saved links by partial URL. But when I say partial, right, I want to put in, if it was a Microsoft link, I could just maybe type Microsoft and it would find anything. And I'll just call this private public flag. So I'm just updating the search. So that's the search. I think we're almost done. I think, but you all put your thinking caps on and you let me know if I've captured everything. But the one last thing that I think we're definitely missing is, I want to have a login screen. Now, why did I put O? I don't know. I'm just a weirdo. I'd probably be better without O. But I want to have a login screen where users must log in. I don't want any user that didn't log in to see any data. I want to be able to edit logins, add, edit, and delete logins. Please start with login admin, password, ITKAN rocks. So now we'll be able to log in, right? For the first time, we'll have this admin account. Is there anything, ladies and gentlemen, that doesn't appear, like that we didn't talk about in any way that's part of the requirements?
I did notice, maybe you covered it, Stephen mentioned captures title. I don't know if that means when you enter the link, will it go and grab the page title from the actual page and just automatically insert it there and you don't have to type it in?
You know, probably not. It probably won't do that. We could try and add that here in a second, but I'm actually just going to call it title because that is
Okay.
what Steve called it. So
Yeah.
I was
think you
thinking,
got it.
yeah. Did I run out of room? Okay, so like, and so I put in here, please save the data to a database. Like, we want to make sure that it's saved forever. I probably would have said, please save it to a persistent database if I was in techie mode, but I just, put it in plain terms, right? I just want it to be saved forever, and make the link clickable. So if I search on something and it shows me a search result, I want to be able to click on the damn link, right? That's the whole point of it. So I'm gonna say start building. We could be here all day doing stuff, right? But now it's thinking, if you see down here. So if you all can read this, it said, I understand. So it's working, right? This is how it works. It's this long like workflow. And every once in a while it might ask me a question and I'll type down in this message agent box. but it said, I understand you want to build a comprehensive web application for managing and sharing bookmarks with user authentication and categorization. Let me create a detailed plan for your bookmark management system. So it came up with a name, Link Vault. It's going to use a modern web app, PostgreSQL database, and Replit auth for replication. So it basically is telling me it's going to do everything. So I'm going to click. I like this. This looks good. So I'm going to say approve and start plan. So you can see it's got 4 steps. Step 1 is the initial plan is done. It's asking me to hit this button to do step 2. So I hit it, and you can see it sort of working over here on the right. Actually, not yet, but. And eventually what it's going to do is kind of create this visual preview. We'll be able to click around a little bit. And then if we like it, we can give feedback, but ultimately it'll create a like a web application from it. So it's writing code. And you're like, hey, Matt, you lied. You told me I didn't have to write code. There was no code. Matt's a liar. Well, I don't have to write code, right? Of course there's code. But I'm not writing it. Are you seeing this thing get like built on the fly? Look at this icon. Like I've never been good at making software look beautiful like this. It's just never been. I'm more of like the back end kind of guy. And you know, it's amazing. Like this looks kind of nice. Pat, did you have a question?
No, sorry, unintentional, Matt.
Oh, okay,
It
no worries.
does look great.
Yeah, and this is of course just I don't know if this is clickable yet. Yeah, I don't think it is yet. But and it is interesting, like there's rollback here. So like as we go, this right now, this is just like a page worth of stuff we've been working on. Actually, that's not true. Like there's all this in this left-hand thing. When we get done, this will be 10 times longer. There'll be all sorts of gobbledygook that it spits out. And you can go back, and anywhere that there's this rollback to here, you could automatically, like if something went crazy, because you can like keep editing this web system. You can keep asking it to do things, and it'll keep adding things or changing things. But if you ever figure out like, oh my gosh, something went wrong, you know, I was down like 13 steps, and when I got to the 14th step, something totally broke it. You could click roll back to here and like jump back to your 13th step. So they built in some pretty nifty tools like that because you don't know everything that's happening as it goes through each step. It's a little bit black box and automagic. So the ability to have these rollbacks are really clever in my opinion. So right now it's building the application, as you can see here. And at some point we're going to have a clickable demo. Actually kind of surprised. Yeah, I don't use Replit every day. So I'm not an expert, but eventually this will be a working prototype. You know, so while this is working over here on the left, right? It's literally building the app. It's saying determining next steps. It's literally trying to figure out how it should build the technical portion. So while this is thinking and doing its stuff, this is kind of an example of agentic AI, really. People talk about software agents, agentic AI, it's going to take over the world. And I talked about it earlier. An agent is something where you can sort of give it a task and it goes and does it for you on your behalf. In this case, you know, I told it to start building. I clicked on a button and it went off and started building the app. So in the background, it's literally build out the application. And that's like a good example of agentic AI, where you ask it to do something, it goes off and does it. I don't need to babysit it. It'll tell me when it's done. So hopefully our site will get created in the next few minutes. Let's give it a second here. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Juan?
Yeah, so in like you know how it's making the application right now, right?
Yeah.
Once it finishes up and say you run out of your membership, you still have access to that same site, or is it only while you have your membership with Replit?
Yeah. I can click on this link down here. I can get access to the code, so I can sort of like take the code out.
Mhm.
I would assume when your membership ends, if you haven't like saved your stuff, it'd be gone.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So like in my case, right now I'm paying $250 a year. It's really to like experiment, right? This stuff
Yeah.
is, I mean, this stuff's been out for 3 months, like vibe coding, right? This is such a new thing. Um, I don't, I would probably pay $250 a year to have access to my, the one app that I use, but it'd be a heck of a lot cheaper if I exported the code. And Juan, you know this. If I took the code out of Replit and I just got the cheapest web hosting I could get, and Brian, you would know this as well from SPR marketing, I could probably get a website for $5 a month. So there's a cheaper way to do it on planet Earth. But I didn't even to get this on the internet, you don't do a thing. Or you hit a button
So
to get
kind
it to
of
the internet.
kind of like another follow-up question. Say if
Yeah.
you ask it to have the AI capabilities within the app, would you still need access to?
Yeah, anything you build in Replit, unless you were to grab all the code, Juan, and download it, which you can do, and move it to some other place and deploy it to another place, unless you did that, you'd lose access. Yes. And the way you deploy, see up here on the top where you click, there's this little deploy button. Eventually that'll turn green when it's ready to press. I press this button and when it's ready, right, I'm getting ahead of myself, but it'll then be available on the internet for anyone on planet Earth to be able to access this website. Now we're going to have a login here, so not everyone would be able to get in, but everyone can get to the login page on planet Earth if you're on the internet once we deploy it. So the beauty of Replit is, I don't need to know how to code, and I don't even know how to deploy. I mean, deploying a written application to the internet once it's written is like almost as hard as writing the application. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's hard to deploy things to the internet through like Azure or AWS if you don't have a technical background. Even if you do have a technical background, it still can be really confusing. You have to set up, it's very security oriented. So there's lots of things that would appear cryptic to someone who doesn't spend a lot of time in a cloud environment. Did that answer your question, Juan?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. Once you put it up, can you like tweak it?
Yes. And great question. Amazing question. And the way you would tweak it is you'd come back to this box on the bottom left, message agent. This is sort of like a chatbot box, right? And you would just say, hey, I want to change my application. I don't like the blue, look and feel. I want it to be more of a pink or purple look and feel. If you did that, it would go ahead and like regenerate. And then once it regenerates, you could click this little deploy thing again. And deploy is of course, the technical word for, like put it into production, make it accessible from the public internet. So you can do that, Sharon. So the short answer is yes, you can. The longer answer was, yeah, you come in here and tell it what you want, and then you deploy when you're done. The thing about vibe coding, and the reason that this isn't going to take a lot of, ton of developer jobs right now, I think primarily is because, like, Sharon, if you got, like, I had an app that I vibe coded and everything was perfect, and I came in and asked it to do something new, and it kind of broke something else. And then I had to like say, oh, I literally told it, when you did the last update to add blah, 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 you broke this other thing. And it was like, oh, okay, I see that. And then it fixed it. So to me, it's a tiny bit of a house of cards. Like once you get something that works, it's also new. It's slightly experimental. It can be a little dicey to like, if you got something that works, I mean, you can always go to these rollbacks, right? That's what those are there for. Like if something broke, down, lower, down, you could go up higher and say roll back, and then you could like iterate from there. So yes, you can do it. So right now, by the way, it's like creating all these files. If you've been watching what's going on, it's creating these server, db.ts, a schema, storage, hooks, pages, right? These are web pages. These components, which are like the back end code. Now you could say, well, I don't know what those are. Well, you don't need to know what they are. But that's what it's doing. So you're like, what the heck is it doing, Matt? While you're blabbing, and it's literally building the application file by file. Just created my database. Hopefully, it's almost done here, because I feel like my chariot is about to turn into a pumpkin as I watch the clock. That's a Cinderella reference.
So where does the database where is it stored?
So Replit has a server environment where, and Claude Code also has this. So look at this. So did you see that over on the right now, it finished the application. So I clicked on login over on the right. So it's saying I've completed building a full stack bookmark management system called Link Vault. It uses authentication. It's got a Postgres database, which, Sharon, it'll be in this special environment accessible from the internet. It's all automatically like provisioned. There's not a whole lot. We might have to do something with the database. I hope not. We'll see here in a second. But CRUD is create, update, delete. That's like add, edit, delete. So it created the bookmark create, update, delete, which is add, edit, delete operation. So it did all this stuff for us. Now over on the right is a prototype of what it did that I'm using. So I can look at the dashboard. So there's no bookmarks. So let's see. You'd be like, oh, Matt, how do you know how to use this app? I have no idea how to use this app. We're all looking at it at the same time for the first time. Hey, Steve, did you have a question? This is like Civic. Yes, I love it. But Steve, let me know if you've got a specific question you want us to pause for. I'm going to keep going here for a second, and I'm going to look back in the chat. I love your points, though. So help me out here, guys. My bookmarks. Oh, plugin error. That's not good. That's an error. That's not supposed to happen. Let me click back. Let's go to user management for a second. Let's say add user. So I'm going to add Steve. His password is banana. So I'm going to save that. So now, we got another user called Steve. Actually, if I edit this, I'm assuming this is the edit button. Oh, so I can't edit. It doesn't seem to be working. So this is like, so these are bugs. So I might have to go back and say, and so real quick though, categories. So personal and work, I could add a new category called ITKAN, right? So I'm just checking out some of the functionality. So here's the 3 categories that we asked. The part of the big problem is like I can't add a bookmark. So I'm going to go over to the agent and say, hey, looks amazing, but I get a runtime error going to the, what is it? The my bookmarks page. Now, so I'm going to submit that. So this is how you debug. So you're like, hey, how'd you know what to say? I don't know. I'm just typing in, like, if I was telling someone beside me what's wrong, that's what I do. Oh, I see the issue from the error log. It said there's a problem with the selection of components having empty string values, which is causing a runtime error. Let me fix this issue in the bookmark page. Look at this. Here's the bookmark page. It already updated it. Works great. So let's say add a bookmark. So I'm going to put in my fave shopping. I'm going to put in Amazon.com. Now you'd be like, well, Matt, why would you do this? You wouldn't. I might have a really long string, right, to put in here. The category is personal, and I'm going to make that public, and I'd say save. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's sort of doing data validation on it. So look at this. If I click on my fave shopping, Oh, did I have a?
You have CON instead of COM.
It
.con.
was so hard to get good help. So I clicked on the edit button. I'm not sure what's happening. Oh, I'm logging back in. I go to my bookmarks. So there's some issues here, right? So add a bookmark, shop, Sharon, you're a teacher, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're like, God, this guy can't type. Did he graduate?
No, I'm not like that at all.
Okay, so now I'm going to click on shop and boom, it went to Amazon. Now you'd say, well, why did it do that? Well, we said I want to have a link in my search results, right? So so let's add a bunch more, maybe, oops.
Mark, I assume that somebody who doesn't know anything about coding wouldn't be able to use this. So what do they need to know to use this?
Well, you need to basically be able to functionally describe a web application and be willing to like, iterate. I'm gonna just say deploy. I don't know if this, I'm gonna see if we could do this real quick. Even though this application's having issues, let's hit deploy because I want to show you that like I'm not doing anything, right? I hit a deploy button up here on the top and it's doing all this gook. And if all goes well here, you'll all be able to navigate to the application. I know it's got problems. We would go through each problem and type it in down here in the agent and say like, hey, when I like I was just trying to edit one of those links and it just didn't seem to ever do anything. Like I could tell it, like, I'm not going to do it right now because I want it to deploy because I want to show you like this. This is like where Martha Stewart, she did the dish and she puts it in the oven and she's got an already made one that she pulls out, that move. Somebody, that's what we're doing here. Sort of. Hey, Steve, okay, cool. I keep seeing your hand up, Steve. So if you've got a question in particular, throw it in the chat. But thanks for your enthusiasm. I love it. I love that you love it. So in a minute here, we should get back. We should get this pretty little page. Here's the pretty little page, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the site. Now you're like, Matt, where are you? I'm literally, this is now this application on the public internet. So go to that app and you can log in as Steve and the password is banana, or you could log in as admin and ITKAN rocks, no spaces, if you want, right? But this is the application. So I could go to my bookmarks and I can add a bookmark, OpenAI, HTTPS. So this is a really simple application, but this shows that like if you needed to manage something relatively straightforward, and I think you could almost quadruple the complexity, but at some point things do fall apart in vibe coding. Like it can only do so much. And as you keep adding things on in complexity, it might forget about things or break things. It can start to be a bit of a like vicious cycle. But I wanted to kind of show an example that I don't think I necessarily used any terminology that someone who understands a website couldn't have used. And I came up with a working website and I clicked deploy and it's on the public internet. Now, I've got 3 now sites on the public internet that I can use and all of mine are password protected. And I don't put anything in there that's like crazy top secret, but this is kind of where the world's going. Now, a professional coder, if I was still, I don't spend as much time building websites, during the day, but if I had to build a website for a client, I would probably consider using a Vibe coding tool as a software professional to like mock up what I want and have it create all the infrastructure And then once the infrastructure is built, you could then like just grab the code and go hand code the rest of it. Right. Like I kind of think like we just built this fully working website. If you said like I could build this faster by hand, I'd be like, no, you can't. No, you can't. Right. Like in a matter of 15 minutes or so, I did a lot of yapping, but 20 minutes max, we built this website. There's no human that can type that much code in that much time. So for a completely custom site. So one of the beauties for a professional would be like, hey, create something and then modify it from there, right? Like have the tool give you the foundational stuff that's saving to the database, and then you can enhance it to your heart's content. For the average Joe that doesn't develop, you could literally build a tool that you use. Something I think that this, Steve, what a great, great idea. This was sort of the sweet spot for complexity. So I'm glad like there are bugs in this, and we could fix them by going back and saying like I cannot edit the links once they are saved. Edit the links. So, and I could just hit enter and it'll start, I'll hit enter and it'll start like trying to work on it and fixing it. And so you can sort of, so this is how I could also have said, Sharon, like, hey, I want to add a new tab that, saves my favorite ice cream flavors, and it would have added a new feature to the application, added it to the database, all that sort of stuff. So you can keep adding stuff. But that's really it. That's what I was hoping to show is like, the proof's in the pudding. In some ways you could say, this is pretty simple, Matt. Like, it kind of took a while. But I don't know. If you consider 2.5 years ago, this would have been like sci-fi. And today you can do it. And AI models are just getting more powerful. This sort of stuff is our future. And, it's not what's going to happen. It's how fast is it going to happen. And one day developers will do a lot less coding. Today they do 20% less. In the future, it might be 80% less. And tools like this might be a little bit closer to what a professional developer uses. Today, this is sort of reserved for the non-technical for the most part, this vibe coding. But it's real. And actually, if this seemed interesting, you can get a free trial on Replit. I think it's a free trial. You don't have to pay. You might get kicked off like I did. You definitely don't have to spend $250. But I would encourage you to check it out. And that, I've got nowhere to be. So if anyone has any further questions, I'm all ears, but I know we're 2 minutes over time, so I want to be respectful of everyone's evening. So I'll hand it back.
I have lots of questions.
Yeah, well.
What can we look inside, or can this exist outside of Replit?
Well, tell me what that means, exist outside Replit.
Well, if you have this app, but you don't want to have this this URL that has Replit in it.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'd have to do what Juan was asking. As far as I know, you'd have to download the code, and then you'd have to hope you've got a resourceful husband that could deploy it to some low-cost hosting environment, and you could definitely run it elsewhere and put whatever URL you want. Yep. But the moment you do that, like, the beauty of this is I remember I typed something over on the left. It's like still working. And when it gets all done, I can click redeploy up here on the top. Remember, it said deploy. Now it says redeploy. So the cool thing about keeping it in the Replit environment is that you have the advantage where any changes you make, you can just auto deploy without any effort. Sharon, obviously, if you take this out of Replit, you can't just hit redeploy, right? You'd have to manually have your resourceful husband, take all the files and move them over to the place. But yeah, you could do it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I was just thinking, like, if you had a website and you didn't want it to have Replit in the if you wanted to, but I guess
there might be a way. I mean, my guess is you could. I bet with enough money, and I don't know what enough money means, but there easily could be. I don't spend a ton of time in here. There could easily be a way to get a more vanity URL. I'd be kind of shocked if you couldn't do that, honestly. But that's a great question. Just did a quick Google search.
So what should teachers focus on now? What should our focus for this, for teaching kids coding?
I will answer that question, but I'll say it looks like there is a way on Replit to substitute your own domain. It appears to be something you can do with DNS. So just FYI, that looks like that is possible. We need people that can still write tools, right? Like, I mean, I still think a technology degree is really good. Even software development. I do think that an AI, a data science, artificial intelligence specific degree might, or a security degree in computer science might be two of the best places to be. People are using AI. See you, Pat. Pat's taken off. It was nice to see you, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
The bad guys are using AI to be nastier and craftier.
Hi, guys.
See you, Pat.
Thank
Hey, Pat.
you, Matt. Great.
Yeah, I hope you had fun.
We did, or I did.
Cool. It's actually really interesting. I'll send out a short little reel to this group. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, kind of has advice on what he thinks people should be studying. And it's things like adaptability, creativity, problem solving, analytical skills. Those are the skills that they predict will be most valuable in the future as we become more coordinators and orchestrators of AI, versus doing a ton of the tech hands-on. But some people are going to have to understand the tech, right? The world can't operate with just the computers knowing how to write code. But it'll probably be a smaller camp. So, but I'll send you this reel, Sharon, and you can hear it straight from Sam Altman on what he recommends. And by the way, Mark Zuckerberg, from Facebook and Instagram, he says the exact same thing about what he recommends. The CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, recommends, NVIDIA makes all the GPU chips that stuff runs on. They're, I think, the highest valued company in the United States, maybe planet Earth. The NVIDIA CEO says you should go into biology. You should go into the sciences. Like, you shouldn't study computer science. You should study science. That's what he thinks. Because in the future, he's like, you're going to be able to take your science skills and you're going to be able to couple it with English language, control of AI, and you're going to be able to do wonders. So, so Jensen's point is, he's steering people away from technology and saying, go learn, the other sciences, and you'll combine them with AI and English language. And that's how you'll take advantage of it. Did that help, Sharon? That was a lot, but hopefully that helped.
Yeah. Yeah,
Either
I
that
mean,
or
I still think
drop
that
out.
there's not much that is written for younger kids about how the whole thing is structured, like the back end and the front end and the database and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's tough. I think there are things on planet Earth that humans do where it's really to say it's easy is like not right, but it's sort of it's easier to get to 80% done than it is to get the last 20% done. And I think autonomous driving is a great example of that, right? Like, the autonomous driving community, which isn't just Elon Musk and company, right? It's like researchers and others. they've been saying we're, a year from having fully autonomous cars for the last 20 years. We don't really have true autonomous cars anywhere. There are some driverless taxis, but they don't go down certain streets. They don't pull in driveways. They're not, they can't do everything that a fully autonomous vehicle should be able to do. So, because it's hard. It's a really, and that lasts like, I don't know, call it 2% of autonomous driving. Like a Tesla can almost autonomously drive. It can mostly drive on its own, but that last 2% is so hard. It might be 50% of the overall effort. So I think for like the computer's coding and taking over coding for humans, I think I'm predicting the same thing will be true, that we can get to a 20% savings today, let's say, like for a professional coder, right? This vibe coding, it just did everything, including deploying. But for a professional coder, I think, I could see the day in our lifetimes where it might be doing 80% of the work. But gosh, that final 20%, it's just so hard. That's kind of 80% of the effort, that final 20%. So I don't think you'll see, lots of people are saying, humans won't code, computers will code. Yeah, eventually, yeah. In our lifetime, I don't know that the human's totally out of the loop in our lifetime. I don't know that we can crack everything that fast. I think we'll go from 20 to 80 for sure fairly quickly. Maybe it takes a decade, but lots of people think it's going to take 2 years. So we'll see. So Brian, for us at SPR, this is so interesting because it's like, well, what does this mean for our business? We write custom code. So it might turn out that projects get a lot shorter and we just do more, yeah, so it's something that's very much on my mind because of what Brian and I and our company does for our clients.
Yeah. Steve had a question. I think he was wondering about the other vibe coding platform. And I know you mentioned Claude, and I think there's one called Cursor.
Yeah, so Claude Code is the other vibe coding. So Replit, I'm just putting it in the chat. So Replit and Claude.code, those are vibe coding. Cursor and GitHub Copilot and Windsurfer or Windsurf, and there's more. Those are like developer assisted tools. So you're not going to use Cursor, GitHub Copilot, or Windsurf if you're not a developer, right? But developers do go to them. That is what a developer uses: Cursor, GitHub Copilot, and Windsurfer. A professional developer, and they have a 20% efficiency in their work. Those are the professional tools, and Claude Code and Replit are the others. Now, I mentioned there's something called Bolt, Lovable. Those are also vibe coding, dropping it in the chat. Just like Claude Code and Replit. The difference, though, is that, as far as I know, last time I checked, Bolt and Lovable do not have a deploy feature. Claude Code and Replit do have a deploy feature. What is a deploy feature? That's what pushes your code to the public internet so you can use it. So, like, to me, I'm like, well, why would you vibe code if you can't just click a button and push it to the internet? To me, I don't really get it, right? So, I mean, if you use Bolt or Lovable, you'd have to have that resourceful husband or wife, or, you'd have to have a friend that could deploy it for you, right? And Cursor, GitHub, and Windsurf require you to, like, be in code and understand code. Does that make sense? I know I've been just dropping stuff in the chat. I wanted the words, though, in case I'm slurring my words at this point. You can pick what code it's written. So Sharon had asked what language is it written in. You get to pick it. So if we go into if we go back to our app, I was going to say go to home. If I go back to Link Vault, I should be able to go down here to. Oops. You can pick what it is. Last time I vibe coded, it asked me what architecture I wanted, and it gave me these 4 choices, and it was super technical. And I kind of said, I don't know, what do you recommend? And it said, oh, I recommend this. and it was the kind of stack that professional developers would use. I mean, a lot of time it's going to be written in Python, I think is probably most common nowadays. If I go back up to some of the files, I can, I guess we could validate that. I can find it. Yeah, so here's my code file. Yeah, so this is you know what? I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head.
That's it's just something I saw a YouTube video about, and they
Ah,
say it's related to Python.
yeah.
So-
So this is okay. This is TypeScript. Yeah, which is kind of like JavaScript, not too far off from Python. But you know, the reality is like you could take this code file and I mean, you could tell Replit switch my site to Python, switch my site to PHP, you know, switch it to whatever. I mean, you know, nowadays like language translation, not only spoken language like English to Spanish, but also like Python to TypeScript or vice versa. That the large language models are amazing at that. They absolutely rock. Yeah, and then quantum computing is a whole nother topic. Yeah, with qubits, and they don't use bits. They quantum com quantum computing. Yeah, actually, we should save that. That would be a great conversation for another night. But yeah, this has nothing to do with quantum technically, but yeah, this was really fun. I enjoyed this. I wanted to say thanks to everyone. You know, thanks for sticking around. Either this is interesting or you guys have nothing better to do.
That was interesting. Thanks, Matt.
I'm gonna assume you
Thank
got
you.
nothing better to do, but
It
no.
was interesting.
Yeah, no, this was really fun. If anyone wants to do anything with vibe coding and there's any questions or concerns or anything, holler. I don't know. I might be able to. I don't know for sure that I can share this. But if anyone somehow wants to get an access to this, like Steve, especially, this might be your baby that you want to develop. I don't know how you can like take a Replit site and sort of throw it over to someone. I've never looked into it. There's got to be a way. I see an invite button, so there's got to be some way. But if anyone's interested in, you know, somehow getting assets or Steve, if you want the prompt that we used here today, actually, I'm going to put it in the chat. This was the original prompt, just so you guys have it in this meeting. This is what we use. So if you put this into Replit yourself, you'd get a very similar output. Not the same, but pretty darn similar. Make sense? Cool. Well, Brian, you do such a good job organizing. Thank you so much. And it was really nice to see everybody.
Okay, no problem. Good to see you all too.
Have a
Thank
good night.
you.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.